We read about, of course, the ways in which the Pakistani intelligence services made use of these warriors come to fight the Soviets after the Soviets had left Afghanistan. That Afghanistan is seen as strategic depth for Pakistan against India. The complexities of regional politics are quite significant here. But the point I'm trying to get at is the fact that the security establishment within Pakistan was not altogether hostile to these radical elements, even if radicalism was not the reason that they wanted them there.
Not at all. In the initial years, because they saw a relationship, a cooperative relationship which was there in 1980s. Initially, I would say even logically, they had no reason to go after them because they had served their purpose. What is more tragic is that the security establishment in Pakistan channeled some of these militants towards Kashmir. And if we look at the map, for instance, there's hardly about a 200 or 250-mile journey from the Afghan theatre, if I may call that, or the Pashtun theatre, to the Kashmir theatre. And that's the time when an indigenous insurgency had started in Kashmir. The Indian military was involved in serious violations of human rights. And in any case, India and Pakistan had a different view about Kashmir. It was a disputed land under the international law. But Pakistan started sending some of these militants, grooming some of the other local militant groups. So one was this diversion. The second was Pakistan had a long-term interest in Afghanistan. Pakistan thought that if Pakistan controls the Pashtuns in Afghanistan as well, they can provide a strategic depth to Pakistan. It was phobia. It was, I would say, entrenched insecurity in the mind of the Pakistani military establishment that India will come and take over. And it was not completely illogical because India was involved in some of the attacks. But to think that Pakistan will control the Pashtun areas in Afghanistan so that if India attacks, we have a depth. And what that led to was that Pakistan started supporting some of the militant leaders in Afghanistan in 1990s. Gulbuddin Hikmatyar being one, Sayaf being another. There were many others. And that meant that Pakistan had to be soft or friendly towards all these militants. So that insecurity which led to this expansionist model in the area, I think played havoc with the state and society in Pakistan.
Let's jump ahead now and we think about, of course, the war in Afghanistan, which, though it continues, does seem to have broken the base of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. But by all accounts, that base in reduced form has nonetheless relocated to the very territories that we're talking about here. Certainly from what you say, one can see the reasons that A, they might be accepted into this area, and B, how difficult it would be to distinguish the visitors, so-called, from the local population. So you've sketched out for us a very difficult situation, but I am hoping that you also have some way of describing to us ways in which we can find a way out of this difficulty, because the security risk, even if it's changed, still exists insofar as al-Qaeda has reestablished itself.
Absolutely. I mean, at one level, I will divide these issues into two, if I may. One is the local Pashtun population's problem related to Pakistan, related to Afghanistan, related to Talibanization. And by Talibanization, if we can define it, we mean that those Taliban are the madrasa students, the seminary students. These are the ones who had gained power, who had emerged victorious in 94, 96. And those were very harsh people, very crude. Violation of human rights were rampant in their time, as we know. But those were all Pashtuns. So that is one phenomenon. And al-Qaeda, being Arabs, was different because there was no clear language communication. And Arab can be, in most cases, very clearly distinguished from a Pathan or a Taliban. In case of al-Qaeda, I think it should have been easier to get rid of them, or at least bring them to justice, or eliminate them, or take them out of the area into the legal system, or wherever we want to. And why that never happened was because of primarily, number one, the mountainous areas. Secondly, because some of the linkages they have developed in the area. And third, if I make say not enough effort. I think if there was more military investment, it is inconceivable why Osama bin Laden was allowed to run away from the Tora Bora. Yes, it is a very difficult terrain. It was extremely difficult, but some brave American soldiers were there immediately after 9/11 tragedy, and there could have been more military effort. But in case of Taliban, I would say there are 3 or 4 major reasons which we must need to recognize, and then we would understand if we can really make a difference. One is their grievances, and their major grievance is that we were used in the Afghan war of the 80s. They cannot come out from, rightly or wrongly is another issue, but they cannot come out of that frame of mind that we were used as a battleground, and then no health services were provided, no education infrastructure was built. That is one grievance. Secondly, they say that since 9/11, the US military campaign, the NATO campaign, and also Pakistan military's action in that area led to some collateral damage. Third, they say that we were always autonomous. We even never had any courts, and now Pakistan military, about 70 or 80,000 people are there, so they react to that. Third, that factor of that, what I was mentioning, that militant mindset or that jihadi culture, unfortunately became entrenched because no one was trying to tackle that issue. And last but not the least, the fear of the outsider, which I had briefly referred to when I mentioned myself, being a police officer from Punjab was not accepted. For them now, the outsider are the US forces or NATO forces, and that they say that they should not be in the area. These are the 3-4 issues. But the real problem also is that now they are trying to expand. They were bombing girls' schools. They were not allowing NGOs. They were trying to kidnap young kids from Northwest Frontier Province by force at gunpoint and take them to make them suicide bombers. In last year, 2007, Pakistan had about 57 suicide attacks. In 2006, they were about 25 or 6. If we go to 2003, the number of suicide attacks was 1.